Hello everyone, today we are talking about celestials, and this has there's a wide gambit of really interesting creatures that come under celestials, including unicorns. But this is also the realm of angelic creatures and stuff like that. So tell me a little bit about what is new with celestials in D&D.
Celestials, which are native to the upper planes in D&D, they are suffused with the power of the gods, with the power of the upper planes themselves. And when we were building out the new monster manual, we wanted to give the angels some friends, because previously the celestial family in the monster manual was pretty small. You had the angels, you had the unicorn, and beyond that, it was a short list. A number of things began falling into place for us when we decided to, for one, add the animal lord to the monster manual, because there we wanted an example of a celestial from the Beastlands. Well, then that was the domino that led to us, the light bulb going off, that as we were looking for a home for our giant animals who talk, because we knew we needed to move them out of the beast category because they were incorrectly categorized before, because if the owl has, full sapience like a human and can talk to you, that's not an owl the way we think of owls in our world. And so the giant eagle, the giant elk, the giant owl, they too are now celestials, because we are now envisioning them as other denizens of the Beastlands. And if you meet them in the material plane, like the unicorn, it's just they have traveled to the material plane from either the Beastlands or some other celestial realm. While some of the giant animals have migrated over to the celestial category, most of the giant animals are still in the beast category. How we determined where the giant animals went in the categorization of the creatures was really what level of sapience did they have before. So if they had human-like sapience and they could talk, they were going to leave the beast category. But most of our giant animals were just a giant version of an animal, and so most of them are still in the beast category, which means most of them are still affected by magic that affects beasts, and most of them remain wild shape options if they're of the appropriate CR for a druid of a particular level. We also took sphinxes and moved them all into the celestial category, and then expanded out the sphinx category, which we can talk more about in a little bit. So people are going to see that a number of creatures have now moved into the celestial category, not only showing the variety that there actually is in the upper planes, but then also, again, just that simple thing of the angels have some friends now. And we also have a greater range of challenge ratings for the celestials. And, including, all the way down to very low CR with something like the Imperion iota. And going then all the way up at the other end to creatures like the Solar and the full-fledged Imperion.
So that art is just metal. It is not the Imperion I grew up with. I love the art for that, but you mentioned a different type of Imperion as well.
The Imperion iota, which is almost a notion of divinity that has taken form. And for anyone who doesn't know what an Imperion is either the direct child of a god or a being who is otherwise very directly shaped by a deity. And this time around, we wanted to show that not all Imperions have a celestial parent. And so when you go to the Imperion, it is unusual in this book because it has two different creature types. The Imperion is either a celestial or a fiend, and the DM decides based on the story, is this the child of one of the gods on Mount Celestia, sort of like Hercules, or is this a child of a being like Asmodeus, in which case this Imperion might be a fiend. So we wanted to make sure that the Imperion had even more utility for dungeon masters with their storytelling when you want to have a demigod show up. And again, they're not always necessarily going to be illuminated by golden light. They might instead be surrounded by hellish fire.
Right.
And then you'll have to navigate what that means for you and for your campaign. But then with the iota, this is a chance for you to encounter a spark of divinity at lower levels. You can almost think of the Imperion iota as like a distant cousin of the Lantern Archon, which is a celestial that has been in the game for decades. But the Imperion iota, like the Imperion, can be a celestial or a fiend. So that divine notion that has taken form could be a wonderfully radiant notion or a devilish, horrific notion.
It's an interesting point because, like, Celestials doesn't necessarily, I mean, it tends to mean good, but also Celestials, like, they're not without being able to be made angry.
Absolutely, because
some of them can be absolute devas.
Yes, yeah, and in fact, one of them is a deva. But no, we see you, Todd.
But it's something I do honestly love to play with. Like, yeah, you think this character is going to be so good and on your side. I'm like, no, you're in the wrong spot.
And people will see that a number of the creatures in the celestial category in the book aren't. Their default alignment is not one of the good alignments. I mean, for instance, the default alignment for Imperions is neutral.
Yeah.
And so not everything that is flagged as celestial is good. And even if it is good, it doesn't mean it's on your side, because something we drive home in this book with the story material is just how otherworldly celestials are.
Yeah.
And their motivations, whatever their alignment, might not align with mortal motivations in any way.
Yeah, coming from our own mythology.
Well, I mean, and they're also certainly not all peaceful. Good does not mean passive.
Yeah.
I mean, you have things like the Planetar Angel, where their entire deal is about war. And that's something that you're going to see with every one of the angels, where even though these are incredible, like, manifestations of goodness, that doesn't mean that they have to be passive in your campaign. Something that you'll see a lot, both in the art and in the story text, are details on how you can really use these in your adventures, not just as here's an angel and now you have to kill it, or now it's angry at you for a reason, but more, how might they work as a patron? How might they send you on a quest?
Yeah.
How might they be doing things that drive you forward in a plot, or end up being in opposition to you in a way that's right for adventures? For a long time, angels have just, I think for many DMs, been like, all right, maybe I make an evil one. What do I do with this?
Right.
We've spent a lot of energy giving you a breadth of suggestions for what you can do with them.
And yeah, to really underline that, a creature does not have to be evil to be a foe for a group, because good creatures can have honest disagreements with each other, and disagreements that can flare up and turn even into violent conflict. And we really look, when looking at the angels in particular, because they are specifically flagged as good, really delve into the fact that they still are not at peace with a lot of the multiverse.
Yeah.
And they also each have different roles. And also when you dig into the stat blocks, people are going to see that we've really enhanced their celestial nature. So you're not going to see any more, one of them looking like they're holding a weapon that they bought at the store.
Right.
They are like with the Solar. The Solar's weapons look like they are made out of light itself. with the Deva, we've really leaned into the fact that Devas are the default sort of messengers of the gods of the upper planes. And that's one of the reasons why in the art even the Deva is holding a scroll, a symbol of like bringing the word from on high. We've also done a number of things to bring some elements that used to be in the story text in the 2014 Monster Manual and brought those elements into the stat blocks. And we've done that not only for Celestials, but when we get to the Fiends, we can talk about what we did there as well. And so specifically what I have in mind here is you're going to see a lot of creatures now that specifically tell you if you drop them to 0 hit points, they're not dead unless particular conditions are met. That text actually existed in the 2014 Monster Manual, but with a few exceptions, it was almost never in the creature's stat blocks. You had to go read the story text to find out, like, oh, wait a second, this devil or this demon or this angel isn't actually killed by dropping to 0 hit points. But we know from observing many, many live play shows and other people DMing, they often miss that text, and it was like, oh, the angel's dead. And it's like, no, it isn't. Yeah. And so that's why like you'll now see these different restoration abilities in a number of our Celestials and a number of our Fiends, where, again, before, it was like if you carefully read the story text, you found out, oh, it only dies if it's on a certain plane or some other condition is met. All that information is now at the DM's fingertips in the stat blocks.
We've got the Guardian Naga is in this. We've got the Unicorn, the Pegasus. Have these changed any particular ways?
So the Unicorn has the enhancements that all of our legendary creatures have gotten. So we going through the Unicorn, which is also one of the lower CR Celestials in the game, but also one of the lowest CR legendary creatures in the game. It's always tickled me that odds are one of the first legendary creatures you're going to meet is not a dragon or some other fearsome foe, but is most likely going to be a unicorn, especially if one pops up because a wild magic sorcerer rolled a unicorn on their wild magic table. But we've gone through and fine-tuned all of the Unicorn's abilities, and you'll see that their legendary actions are much spicier than what was in the Unicorn stat block before. And the whole thing has actually made not only the Unicorn an even more able ally, but if you get on the wrong side of a Unicorn, it is also now going to be a much more scary fight for you to go up against this creature. So watch out, because the Unicorn now truly delivers its CR.
Tell me about the Sphinxes.
So we have more Sphinxes now. Specifically, we added the Sphinx of Wonder, the little wee Sphinx, which people have already gotten to see in the new player's handbook. This unfolded as we were looking at all the creatures in the Monster Manual and determining, whether a creature was in the correct category or not. We realized first that Sphinxes just in general did not belong in the monstrosity category. Like, given their otherworldly story, Celestial was their natural home. And I think that really helped then inspire some of the redesigns we did in the stat blocks. But then we also, as we've done in other monster families, we looked and always determined, do we need a higher CR version in this family or a lower CR version in this family? And we realized we wanted a lower CR version, Sphinx you could meet early on, and then even more because we became so enchanted with this little Sphinx, a Sphinx that you could befriend, which is why that Sphinx ended up in the player's handbook, because who doesn't want a winged cat?
There was also an element while we were working on the section in the player's handbook on alignment, where we were looking at the different monsters that are generally associated with the different alignments, like the Quasit or the Imp or Sprites, just being little guys that are archetypical of a whole family that's influenced or an embodiment of that alignment. And as we were looking at it, we saw that there was really an opportunity for like, hey, let's make sure that there's a good little guy for folks of lawful good alignment. And that's part of where the Sphinx of Wonder developed, where it's like, okay, now this is something that would make a good companion for good guys more in that trajectory.
And we wanted this little creature, rather than just being like a miniaturized angel, we wanted this little creature to feel like it belonged in the same group as, when you're again looking at the alignment spread, as imps, quasits, and the fae we selected to go in there. You know, each of these creatures with, you know, small, magical, can be a companion to spellcasters. And so thus arose the Sphinx of Wonder.
I really do love the Sphinx art in all of this.
Well, this is also something that you're going to see in the art for the Sphinxes, but it's going to be broader as you look at many of the Celestials now, where they're, just from looking at them, you can tell that they're not just normal creatures. Like, the Sphinxes here have their wings trail off into this mysterious vapor. The mane of the unicorn is these like rainbow colorful effects that also like wisp off. The Pegasi have these cloudy wings that also end up like diffusing off into like more cloud shapes and whatnot. You get a hint from just looking at them that they're not just animal mashups. They're these creatures of the plains, and they have these magical aspects to them.
I actually quite love the Celestials as characters, and like you mentioned, kind of like the Banshee, it's a great narrative hook. But like, I am a big fan of the comic book series Constantine, and the friction this not very good person has with constantly having to deal with angelic creatures is just great storytelling. I've always enjoyed that. So I like using Celestials to that effect. Like you said, like the Deva can be a messenger and give you information. Or you could be, for whatever reason, just being a fairly neutral party going against the wishes or the greater good that some angelic being believes in. That's always great storytelling.
Well, I mean, it's also something where you're going to see some of that in the narrative text for the Deva, where there's always that question of like, well, if the angels are out there, why don't they just come and fight all of the fiends? Well, you'll see it in the text for the Deva, where it's like, well, they could do that, but they want to help you do that. They want to help the adventurers grow, develop, and show that they're more than just victims. So here they're encouraging you to be something better, to be something greater. And that's one of the big ways that when you have something like angels or celestials in general, that they are different from fiends.
And again, one of the ways in which you could end up on the opposite side from the celestials in a war is a particular group of celestials might be doing that work of inspiration and encouragement to the other side.
Yeah, absolutely.
and so DMs, I encourage everyone to just remember the celestials, even if they're good, are not necessarily always on the side of the adventurers. Because there are other good people in each D&D world that the angels might be helping.
And there may be a bigger outcome that they're working towards that you do not understand.
Yes.
And that is also a fun thing to play with. I mean,
well,
Zariel's arrogance is a great example of maybe you should not be involved in Descent into Avernus, Baldur's Gate, the book. You know, Zariel falls because Zariel wants to have an active hand in the blood war. You were about to say?
Just that there are so many storytelling possibilities with celestials, particularly because while they do look so otherworldly, you can talk to them, you can reason with them, but similar to Fae a bit, their motivations are often inscrutable, and it can be perilous. And so I think with Celestials, I encourage anyone who's building a campaign or a story to always remember these are immortal beings who perhaps have lived for tens of thousands of years, and their priorities are not a mortal's priorities. The thing that's because also getting to the question of, well, why don't the angels just show up? Well, it's quite possible that for many of them, whatever is the crisis of the day in the adventurer's life might be so small scale for the angels, it's not even blipping on their radar.
Yeah.
Because again, if you've lived for even potentially millions of years, it's like you've seen it all, and it's like we'll blink, and this thing that the mortals are running around, with their hair on fire about, the angels will blink and say, oh, it's already over.
Yeah.
We didn't need to do anything. Because they are perhaps doing something else that's even more important.
When devils and celestials see you, that's a moment. Like you have made yourself somehow more important enough into the story of these entities that they address you. The stakes suddenly are upped.
Woe is you if you get on the wrong side of especially a solar.
Oh God, yeah.
I do not want the solar's slaying weapon pointed my direction.
And yeah, for those that don't know, what is the difference between like a solar and say, we mentioned the planetar, but the solar.
Yeah, the three main types of angels, or at least specifically the three who appear in the monster manual, are the Deva, the planetar, and the solar, and they go up in power in that order. The Deva is not only the lower CR one, but also in terms of the angelic hierarchy, the one that mortals are most likely to meet, because Devas are again messengers. Planetars are really the soldiers, the divine knights of the angelic host. If there is a war in heaven that breaks out, or a massive celestial battle someplace else, almost always you're going to see planetars there. Solars are sort of the generals of the angels, and also the ones most likely to be the confidants of the gods themselves. So if there is an angel who has actually been in the presence of an actual god, most likely that angel is a solar. And that's one of the reasons why solars blaze with a light that surpasses the light of the other angel types. And it's in their name, solar, like they're a sun blazing with holiness.
And they're appropriately devastating, like even compared to like fiendish heavy hitters like the Balor and the Pit Fiend. The Solars, even a bigger deal, and challenge rating wise, even more powerful.
Was there something about those three that you wanted to up the power level or add a different flavor to?
So in every case, their abilities are more magical than they were before. The Solar is even more devastating than before. Every legendary creature in the book, which includes the Solar, those legendary actions you're going to find either brand new legendary actions in each legendary creature, or returning ones that are more powerful than they were before. We made sure that whether the Solar is helping you with its Divine Aid bonus action, or it is, and again, woe is you, if it is firing its slaying bow at you, we made sure you're going to feel it, whether the Solar is on your side or on your opponent's side.
Thank you so much for watching this video. We will have a ton more videos all about the different monsters in the new Monster Manual. You can purchase the brand new Monster Manual and all three of the Core 2024 Core Rulebooks by clicking on the link in this video description. I'm Todd Kenrick. Thank you so much for watching.